Oh.
And like, don't listen to that voice inside that's like, hey, you can't do this.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're not an athlete. You're just a little girl. Like, like, like you're going to run through a bear infested Montana.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, right. What are you going to do? Like, no, you're not. Like, it's like, no, I'm not listening to that. And like, I just listen to like the more quieter, bigger voice on the inside. That's like, you're limitless. Like, you can do anything you want. Make it epic, do good, and like, just like dominate whatever you do.
Yeah.
And have fun while you do it and invite other people along the way. Because when you can share that mindset with other people, you're like making the world a better place.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the MTNTOUGH Podcast. We are so glad you're here, and we love seeing you guys come back week after week to listen to these episodes. It's our goal to bring you inspiring guests week after week to help you live a more abundant life. Thanks for being here, and thanks for helping us become the top mental toughness podcast in the country. As always, we don't run ads on the MTNTOUGH Podcast. All that we ask, if these episodes are helping you transform your life, please take a second and share them with others. And if you haven't already, please leave us a review in the podcast store of your choice. Those reviews mean a ton to us, and we love seeing those messages come through. There's been a lot going on at the Bozeman lab. It's been a busy time of year as everyone has been cranking, getting ready for September 1st. September 1st kicks off the majority of our hunting season here in Montana. So it's a busy season getting rifles, bows, gear, and equipment ready. But in the lab, we also have been busy producing Sandbag 20. So we teamed up with the guys over at GoRuck to bring you a specific MTNTOUGH sandbag program. It's a 4-week sandbag program that is 5 days a week for 4 weeks. It does progress, and all you need is just a few pieces of simple gear. This program is a game changer. We tested all the workouts here in the lab, and if you haven't done sandbag-specific training, there is really nothing like it to take your functional fitness to a whole new level. So if you've been with MTNTOUGH for a while and you've been training with us for a while in the app, maybe instead of going into your in-season program this year, take a second and definitely check out Sandbag 20. The workouts in that program are phenomenal, and you can do them anywhere on the road as you're traveling to these hunts. This program can be done inside or outside. Shifting gears into today's episode. Today's episode is an insane, inspiring story. Weston, the MTNTOUGH head of business development, sits down with Becca Boylan. Becca Boylan has been a MTNTOUGH athlete historically. She helped us actually in the lab get the MGD product off the ground. So all you MGD athletes out there may have seen Becca. She was an athlete in that program in the very beginning. But she then transitioned and went and did a crazy, life-changing story. What Becca did is Becca actually ran across the entire state of Montana. So she ran 475 miles across the state of Montana, and she did that to bring awareness to cancer after going through a cancer experience with her mother. This story is wild. What Becca did is pretty inspiring. It's a story you're not going to want to miss as Weston sits down to learn more about why Becca did this and what she learned through the whole process. So stand by for Weston's conversation with Becca.
Thanks for coming in, Becca.
Yeah.
It's really awesome to have you here for sure. You did dailies a while back too. So we knew you from there.
Yeah.
Our dailies, some people will probably remember you from those too, but back in your strength training days, you have been on a really wild adventure. You ran across Montana.
I did. Yeah, I did.
So cool. Like literally just to fathom. A lot of times too, it's like people say they're going to do something and it's like, oh, I want to do that. I wish I could do that. But you like legitimately ran across the state of Montana.
Yeah, I did it.
So,
I ran the whole thing. Yeah.
Holy smokes. So starting way up north, right?
Yeah. I started in Eureka, Montana, which is next to the Canadian border.
Okay.
And then I ran on mostly highways, 2-lane highways.
Yeah.
to Whitefish and to Kalispell. And then I ran down through the Sealy Swan Valley. So from like Salmon Lake to Sealy Swan Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ran from there, I ran to Orvando, which is super beautiful.
Yeah.
Then I went through the back roads and ran to Avon, on
Okay.
another like small 2-lane highway. And then from Avon to Cardwell to
Yes.
Norris to Ennis to Cameron to the Idaho state line.
Come on.
Yeah.
That is incredibly fast for you to explain that, but it took a little while. How long did it take you?
So since the start of the project or since like the run?
Let's go to the run.
Yeah. So
then
the
we'll
run
talk
itself,
about the project.
I started on June 14th and I ended on July 10th. So,
Okay.
So just, I think 25 days total of running.
Dang.
Well, yeah, of the project. And I only ran for 19 of those days.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
the whole run was 475 miles in 19 days of running, which comes out to be like 24 miles a day. give or
24
take.
miles a day.
Yeah.
What's it like to wake up on day 3 after having run 2 days of 24 miles and wake up on day 3 and run again? Because I can't really fathom that.
I think like there's an adjustment period for sure.
Mhm.
So like the third day was hard and difficult.
Yeah.
The worst part of it was like maybe day 7 because you wake
Okay.
up and you're like, you're totally mentally fatigued. Your adaptation hasn't happened yet.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're like, why am I doing this? This is insane. Like I'm tired. Like this, I don't want to be running anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I ran a lot of the run alone, solo. So
Okay.
some days I had a pacer with me. And I always had a crew with me, but they were usually like 20 miles down the road.
Okay.
So they'd drop me off and I'd run 5 hours to them or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
And so it was a lot of like mental, like, why am I doing this? Like,
Dang.
come on, Becca. Why did you
Like,
think this up?
What is the reason?
Yeah.
To that's day 7
hmm
difficult to like, yeah, you hit that lull, I would assume
Yeah.
then. And then you came out of it, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was around like day 10, I kind of like realized that I kind of found my groove
Yeah.
and I finally figured out what was working for me crew wise. So one of the huge logistical problems with this run was
Yep.
the running was the easy part.
Yeah.
Like the difficulty was the logistics of crewing and having 2 crewing vehicles and multiple different people crewing me.
Okay.
So I had friends and family.
Yeah.
So the first person to start crewing me was my sister and her 3-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And we're in a van and you're just like, oh my gosh. And she like can't read a map. We don't have service.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not that hard. There's only one road.
It's a straight shot.
There's one road up here, Savannah. Just drop me off and like take me and you'll find me later.
Yeah.
And by day 10, I had finally kind of found my stride and you just wake up and you're like, oh man, like, let's do this. Let's go. And all of a sudden that pain and the struggle that you've experienced on like day 7 it's not better and it's not away, but you're more comfortable with it.
Okay.
It's not diminished, but you just get
Mhm.
comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once I figured that out, it was honestly pretty easy. And like,
Dang.
yeah.
Like just roll into another 24-mile day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it was like, I mean, I'm in my home state. I'm running through Montana. I'm doing
Mhm.
something I've spent, 10 months of planning to do.
Yeah.
And I'm loving it, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm running through all these towns and cities that I've planned to run through. And I'm looking up at the sky and I'm looking at the clouds and
Mhm.
I'm listening to some good music and I'm having a blast
Yeah.
because you're like, I get to be outside or running through the state of Montana. Like, how cool is this? And so in a way, like the run itself, it was like kind of duplicitous where it was like sucking energy from me and like really physically hard
Mhm.
and mentally really hard. And I had a lot of mental fatigue, but at the same time, running itself was filling me back up and like pouring some into the tank for me.
Yeah.
Because that's just what running is for me, is it gives back to me. So
Oh yeah. But you have to go through that period of time too. Like, yes, it's not instant,
No.
right? Like it's going to take a bit of time before you start recognizing
yeah.
that it is filling the cup.
Yep. Yeah,
Back out.
totally. Yeah.
Just to have legs to be able to run that many miles over that many days consistently is, it's really, really wild for me. But seeing those places too, like you're in those communities, I'm sure people are like driving by wondering what in the world
Yeah.
too. And you get to share in just this like Montana experience that so many people, never get to see too.
Yeah. Like I ran into Orvando and there was like a group of like, Orvando's the coolest little town, but there's a group of like 7 old men like outside the general store. And I like ran in and I'm like in running shorts, a sun hoodie with a running belt and a can of bear spray, and I'm probably the youngest person they've seen there in like 10 years or something. And I walk in and I'm buying like an ice cream bar and they're like, "Are you out for a run? Are you lost?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm running. They're like, "I'm running to like Avon." They're like, "What?" You're like, "Yeah, like I started in Canada." And like the look in their eyes was just like, "What?
What are you doing?" Yeah.
And it's just, but I don't think running 24 miles a day, and I mean this like with true like humility, I guess, but I don't think it's that difficult.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people could do it if they wanted to.
Yep.
And I think we just tell ourselves we can't.
Mm-hmm.
And we're limited by time and we limit ourselves with like the little man inside of us.
Yeah.
And because you can walk 25 miles a day if you really had to.
Oh, totally.
So and like I only ran for 6 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's 18 hours in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I can sleep for another 6 or 8 hours.
Recover.
I'm fully recovered. Like I'm not doing like this ultra run where I'm like depleting my sleep and like, although on day 23, I did hallucinate, but that's like a whole different story, but
we'll get to that for sure.
But I think like 24 miles a day, the if you think about it, the barrier to that is mental.
Mm-hmm.
You can totally walk 7 hours a day.
Yeah. Just go set out.
Yeah. Just
go
slow
walk.
and steady.
Yep.
And the only thing that's going to stop you is one, running out of sunlight and mentally if you can't keep it together.
Yeah.
So,
just keep on that path. It's like, I've heard it a lot too. It seems to be really common in the running space when people hear that you run, if they knew what you did, or, not that you're touting it, but they'll say, "I could never do that." And like instantly I'm just like, yes, you could.
Yeah, you totally
You could do any of this.
Yeah.
I guarantee you anybody can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
if I could do it, anybody can do it. Like, and I mean that like wholeheartedly. Like I had 2 50K races under my belt.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was the Rut and like the Whitefish 50K.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wrecked after both of those races, like nauseous for 3 days, like could barely walk. Like, and I trained, and I was like, man, but if you look at what running across the state is it's a lot of long, slow days of running.
Mm-hmm.
And the mental challenge is the true challenge. Because you can put one foot in front of the other all day.
Yeah.
And, if you train right and like do the right strength and the right mobility and go at the right pace, you won't get injured. And if you can avoid that, then the true challenge becomes like this mental aspect of it.
Yep.
And I'm just really grateful that I got to like push myself to there.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy that, hopefully people are inspired by it. And I'm grateful for the people that have told me they are, because I think we're all so much more powerful than we think we are.
Oh, it's such, like just going on a journey, any journey, like whatever it is, it's like what you learn from it more than anything.
Yeah.
And running as a gateway to learning this about yourself. I'm like, we have to go talk about the process, because it's not like you could set out and walk for 24 miles today. Yes. But in order to do something like this, there is a training program, a process that you put in place. When did you start training for this?
So I came up with the idea to run like maybe a year ago.
Okay.
And I wanted to do it for my mom's cancer and her leukemia, and find a physical challenge that matched the mental and emotional challenge her cancer was for me.
Yep.
And in a way, kind of right the wrongs of spending a year in an ICU and a bone marrow transplant unit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, what better than running, which I love, through my home state of Montana, which I also love. Yep. And like kind of doing it as like a statement of identity and doing it for myself. Mm-hmm. And then, and there's so many other reasons why, but that was like the initial like concept. And so I started training, I started drawing stuff on maps, started getting some like mapping apps and like going through stuff. And then I was doing strength training with you guys, and that was awesome. And I was actually getting faster, I was getting stronger, and I was injury free for the most part.
Yep.
And then I was just burning the candle from both ends and like not sleeping, was overworking myself, like was maybe sleeping 3 hours a night and just got what we think is overtraining syndrome. And they don't really know what overtraining syndrome is, but it's a combination of like physical injury, high heart rate when you're during exertion, moodiness or like depression and sleep issues and like maybe high cortisol.
Okay.
And I had all of those symptoms in spades. Like
you're just waking up in the middle of the night.
Just waking up, couldn't sleep, wasn't
sleep.
drinking coffee, had a severe anxiety, was super depressed, couldn't focus. I'd go out for like a little tiny like ski skin and like my heart rate would jump to 175.
That's crazy.
Just like barely doing any work.
Just taxed.
Yeah, just taxed. I had asthma all of a sudden. I'm not asthmatic.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I had like this like bronchospasm, laryngospasm, asthma type things going on. And then I got an ITBand injury and I've never been injured as a runner my entire life. Like never experienced an injury.
Yep.
And then had some like pretty bad like depression and like my whole face broke out and like I gained like 10 pounds in a month. Just like overtraining syndrome. Like your body, the adrenals just shot.
And you work in the ER.
I work in the ER.
So it's like there's a lot of factors.
Yeah. And my work schedule, like sometimes I'd go to work at 3 p.m. and stop at 3 a.m.
Okay.
And other times it was 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. or 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So there's just no consistent sleep schedule for me. And it's one thing to push your body, and pushing your body is not hard.
Yeah.
But it's when you can't recover that you start to like dig to the bottom of the barrel and kind of like get into the deep reserves. And I used them all up. And
goodness.
But it was October and I was like, I have this idea for this run project. And I told you guys about it and maybe like one other person and had a coach. And I just like told my coach, I was like, hey man, I need 2 months off.
Yeah.
And I know I'm supposed to run the state in like 8 months. But I need 2 months off. And so I took 2 months off, didn't do anything, and didn't start training until like the middle of January.
Yeah. But you knew you needed to do that,
But I knew I needed to do it. And
it
was a gamble of resting so that I could be better in the long run. And hoping that my body was able to adapt in the way I thought it could, and believing in my body and believing in, you know, how I understood my body as an athlete. So I trained for like 4 or 5 months, January to June. Yeah. Yep. And when I first started, it was like zone 2 only. Yeah. Like you're up at 5 a.m. in 5 degrees,
low and
5
slow.
inches of snow. And you're just like
terrible.
Doing 13-minute miles. Cause that's what my heart rate was like.
Yeah.
So it was like this balance of like, I'm still kind of recovering from overtraining, but I don't want to overdo it. Yeah. Training wise. So trying to find a balance where I could start and like ease back in and still recover. And like the first like 2 months, I only could run like 20-mile weeks. Okay. Like pathetic, like so pathetic.
Well,
like,
I mean, you may think that too, but it's like, that's the process of it too. Yeah. Like while you're doing it, you're like, why is it not faster? Yeah. Yeah. But you have to trust the process.
Yeah. Totally. Yep.
Like, painfully slow. Did you start noticing like with that 2 months off, then like your sleep started coming back, like moodiness better, like that sort of stuff?
Yeah. My sleep finally like regulated. Okay. I like lost, like cortisol does crazy insane things to like our body, especially if you're a woman. It just changes you. And like that all went away. And like, I just felt better. Yeah. Like I wasn't losing my hair. You know, like, and life just became really clear again because I had recovered from that. Yep. And they don't really know what it is. And I'd love to find out. And like, it's a mystery right now to like everyone, but it's something that needs to be talked about because a lot of athletes, I think, toe the line between overtraining syndrome and really like, they really push it there. And then when you're in it, you don't know you're in it. Yeah. And you just think you're not training hard enough. So then your solution is to train harder, which gets you more overtrained. Yep.
You're like, no, I can push. Yeah. I do think I'm like, yes, more people are talking about it. There's probably studies going on too about what it is, but like for like a high performing individual, it's really hard to sit still.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
But just to have the mental strength to say no, like, and take 2 months off
Yeah.
and just let it reset.
Yeah.
Because 2 months goes by pretty quickly.
If you can run,
if
sure.
you can run. Yeah. But I'm like, the reality of it is like, that is part of the training plan.
Yeah. Yep. And I had
2
to
months
see,
of rest.
I had to see it. Like I had to totally figure out in my psychology, how can I make resting a part of training?
Yes.
And like, exactly. It was like my job. I am training how to rest and recover right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I like got all like these like yoga mats and like all these like body rubs and like, you know, did like all this stuff to recover and make a recovery regimen for my body.
Mm-hmm.
And then that actually ended up helping me on the run because I had like all these tips and tricks to keep that stress load down during the run, which is, so in a way it was like very serendipitous. And I don't think I could have finished the run without taking that 2 months off.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I needed to recover, but also because it taught me how to recover, which is just as valuable as knowing how to train or knowing how to push or like digging deep and just like losing yourself in something.
Yep.
So
like your recovery then, like during the run, how was your recovery during the run?
It was so cool. Like, it was
were you crazy sore? Like,
no.
Dang.
Yeah. So I don't know how. And I need to do another big run so I can figure it out. But I was never sore. I was injury free.
Uh-huh.
I didn't lose a single toenail and I have like no blisters.
Dang.
And to run, I think I was running 50,000 steps a day, give or take a few. Like that is so much mechanical load on the body and your muscles and your, you talk about cellular metabolism stress from running.
Yep.
And all of that causes like breakdown of the body and causes injury. And I was never sore. I woke up every day just being like, woohoo, let's go. Like, here we go.
Your cells are like, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
and I was actually kind of mad about it because on day 7, when I was having that mental lull, I was like, oh man, I wish I could just like have a rough day and quit. But my body felt great.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, my body feels great. So that means I should probably just keep running.
Yep.
And it was kind of frustrating because I was like, dang it, I just wanted an excuse not to run and my body wouldn't give it to me.
You're like, just flip the scenario.
Yeah.
Like from what it normally is. And your body's like, no, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
We got you.
Yeah. Versus like, hey, we can't keep up today. And your mind's like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
It was the exact opposite. Yeah.
That's so rad. Like just to be able to be aware of that and in tune with that is like, there's a lot of lessons that running or fitness in general, like give you, so that you can handle these other circumstances that arise. But like that one is really crazy. Like the flip side of it.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Like, let's go. Put these shoes on.
Yeah. And
feet.
having your body like propel you to do something and being like, dang it. Okay, here we go, I guess. And your mind's like, I don't want to do it.
Your mind has to catch up to your body at that point.
Yeah.
Dang. So cool. For you, like across the state of Montana, obviously it's so gorgeous and you picked a really great time of the year. Like all those places, what was your favorite place in there?
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, you had to have one. I'm like the whole thing. Yes. But
I mean, the whole, like, I can tell you my least favorite was like northern Montana and Sealy Swan. And the reason being is because you're running on a 2-lane highway with this corridor of trees and you can't see anything and your satellite phone doesn't work and there's no service. And there's logging trucks coming at you from both directions. And you're just like, and there could be a bear or Sasquatch around any corner. And like, you just can't see it. And like that was mentally the toughest part because you're just running and it's just monotonous. And you're just like, man, like I just really like to see some sky. And I'm from Bozeman and like from Gallatin Gateway. And we're used to like this wide open sky. And so to be in a corridor of trees, and I'm terrified of the woods. So when I was like 12 years old, I was bow hunting with my dad and we had this bear encounter and like it was at night and like it was just really scary. And so ever since then, I've been afraid of the woods. I won't go running through the woods. I'll go run a ridgeline, no problem.
Yep.
So to run through like bear infested northern Montana with bear spray and no service.
Yeah.
no sat phone because the trees are so thick it doesn't work.
And your crew's not there with
and
you.
And my crew's not with me
somewhere.
Because they're 20 miles down the road because, you know, my sister had her 3-year-old daughter with her. And I was just like, man, like, this is insane. Becca, what are you doing?
Wow.
So it was like 4 hours of being like, calm down. There's no bear. Like, calm down. You're okay.
Yep.
And like, hey, it's all in your head. And if it's not, you're going to be okay.
Yep.
Like, you're fine. But that was like a true like moment of like trying to like rewire some of that internal wiring since like that bear encounter.
From the time, 12 years old.
Yeah. And now I don't have a problem running through the roads because I did it for 200 miles or something.
I mean, that is wonderful in and of itself too.
Yeah.
But
And then Ovando, honestly, Ovando, Montana is super beautiful. It's also highly bear populated, but it's so beautiful. And like, it was just, we ran on gravel roads. There's some gravel roads back there. And it's just, you're surrounded by like these small lakes. And it's just, man, you just, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Ennis is hard to beat too. Ennis is just like so special to me.
I know, and like that's towards the end too. You're like, well, I'm getting closer.
Yes. Yeah. And like we ran past this ranch called the Durham Family Ranch, and they've been ranching in Ennis for 3 generations. And my friend Tori, it's her family's ranch, and Tori and her brother lost their mom to cancer.
Okay.
Like a couple years ago. And so I strategically planned the route to run by their ranch.
Yeah.
And like ended up running with Tori, ended up like hanging out with her dad and like hanging out with these ranchers. And it was like this very Montana run moment. Like it was like the vision I had in my head of this run came together with a rancher and a daughter and a family affected by cancer at the base of the Sphinx.
Oh my goodness.
And you're just like, this is insane. You know, and I just run up to the ranch homestead and I'm like, hi guys, it's Becca. And they're like, hi. And like the dogs come meet you and you're like, you want some water? Sure.
Oh.
And then we ran on like her childhood. I might get teary eyed, but we ran on her childhood road and she just got to think about her mom, you know, and she's running next to her grandma's house and she's running next to the road she drove every day to school on. And we're running with the intention of like confronting some of the emotional pain that cancer can cause while enjoying like the beautiful state of Montana and experiencing pain in our bodies, which oddly is healing.
Yeah.
And it was just like a really cool moment and cool to see like Rancher Todd be a part of it and be like, you ran from Canada? What? You know, this rancher dude be like, man, you're pretty tough. Okay.
Yeah,
like,
you're pretty tough.
He's like, I couldn't do it. And you're like, well, yeah, but you do tougher things. So
totally.
Yeah. So
yeah, just to be able to, to get to that point too. And there's like, you have your reasons and there's so much purpose behind what you're doing too, but to wrap it together for somebody else who's gone through that too. Cause your mom has battled leukemia.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For quite a while.
Well, yes and no. So she was in remission. And so I planned this whole run.
Yeah.
It's so crazy because I wanted to give up so many times when I was planning this run. I couldn't get sponsorships. My training wasn't going well.
Yep.
I was like recovering from overtraining syndrome. Instead of 8 months of training, I had 5.
Yep.
Like all these excuses I could have made. But the real hang up was like a financial sponsor for the run. It cost money to drive a van. Like, and the people at 406 Agave sat me down and were like, hey, this is really cool. Can we be a part of this? And Peyton, who started it, his dad had a history with cancer. And so cancer in a way like has connected a lot of people in a really beautiful way. And he's like, I really want to be a part of this run. Let's do it. And I was like, great, sounds good. But I got that a week before the start day.
Really?
Yeah. So I had announced the run already. I had a crew, I had a van, I had done all the planning. I had some like shoes from a local company and like Arc'teryx was nice enough to give me some gear, some nice technical running gear. And I just needed money for gas. Like I literally needed, and I had like a savings like with it, but it costs money to do this kind of thing. And like you got to eat food and you know, it's just one of those things. Yeah, it's a month.
Yeah.
It's exactly. In a van.
Yep.
Like,
take a month off of work.
Yeah, exactly. And like the van's diesel. So you factor that into and you're just like, okay. So I wasn't even sure I was going to pull off the run until a week before it started.
Okay.
And finally, like, it was like, hey, Becca, we'd love to be a part. Let's do this. Like, I believe in you. Let's go. And I was like, oh my gosh, the last 9 months just make complete sense.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to tie in my mom's fight with acute myeloid leukemia.
Yep.
into the run because during her treatment, I would go run. I'd sneak onto the U of U track and like go run at the track at night or run through the trails behind her hospital.
Yep.
And running was like kind of the saving grace for me during her leukemia treatment. And we were in Salt Lake for over a year. And we did 4 rounds of chemo. We did a bone marrow transplant. We did 100 days in intensive care and then 100 days of outpatient care.
Oh.
And I almost lost her multiple times. And I was 26 at the time and I was her primary caregiver.
Okay.
So I like quit my job and like moved down to Salt Lake and spent a year in a hospital with her.
Wow.
Because I'm the oldest of 6 kids and my dad's got a ranch in Wyoming that he had to manage at the time. And I was it. I was the only person that could do it.
Wow.
Oldest kid. I've got a degree in cell biology and neuroscience. I work in the ER. Like, of course it's going to be me. Like, this makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me. And then aside from my, like seeing my mom struggle and almost be on the brink of death, like for a couple months and like almost die multiple times and like rushing her to ERs and allergic reactions and graft versus host disease, like running was the answer for me.
Yeah.
And I still had a lot of that pain and grief on the inside that I needed to make sense of up until like 30 days ago. So I like came up with this run because I was like, I need something that's going to match the mental and emotional pain on a physical level. And a run through the home state just seemed to be like the right ticket for that.
Like difficulty and beauty and
ups and downs and trials and mental breaks and physical challenges and it just seemed like a really cool way to also honor everything my mom had been through.
Yeah.
And to through running as a metaphor recreate like what cancer patients go through and the challenges they face and then share that with other people. And then invite other people affected by cancer along the way if they wanted to join. Yeah. And I had like some really amazing people join me for the run. And like, it was so cool to see like, we'd pull up to a campground and the camp host would be like, "You're late. It's not, you can't clock in." And we'd be like, "Hey, she just ran 32 miles, dude. Like, come on, catch us a break. It's for a mom with cancer." And he'd be like, "Hold on, I'll be right back." And give us like the best spot. And he's like, and then be like, "My wife is a cancer survivor." And like,
have a conversation.
Yeah. And it just created this connection. And, and my experience with cancer was really cool because it was maybe the most beautiful thing that's ever happened in my life is my mom's diagnosis. Because it just gives you such amazing perspective of life. And like, hey, you only got this much time, Becca. You better do what you want to do. Like, make it epic. Like, just make it epic. Like, just grab life by the horns, go for it. And like, don't listen to that voice inside that's like, hey, you can't do this. What are you doing? You're not an athlete. You're just a little girl. Like, like you're going to run through Bear Infest in Montana. Like, yeah, right. What are you going to do? Like, no, you're not. Like, it's like, no, I'm not listening to that. And like, I just listen to like the more quieter, bigger voice on the inside that's like, you're limitless. Like, you can do anything you want. Make it epic. Do good. And like, just like dominate whatever you do. And have fun while you do it and invite other people along the way. Because when you can share that mindset with other people, you're like making the world a better place, which I think is like a huge important thing to do.
Yeah. I'm like tapping into that too. And for anybody to be like, because we're all going to go through this. Like, it's inevitable, whether it's cancer or something else. Like, everyone's going to experience that, whether themselves or in their family or friends. Like, it's going to impact us. So these little lessons in the big scheme of things are really important. Super important. Yeah. And so I had planned for 9 months, and 3 days before the start of the run, which was my mom's diagnosis date of June 12th, 2021, right? So I had like set it up. So I started the run on the day she was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. I get a phone call from her 3 days prior to the start, and she's like, "Hey, I relapsed. I have cancer again. 60% of my bone marrow is mutated." And I'm like, "Mom, you couldn't just keep it together for a month?" And I was like, "Oh no." So I postponed the start of the run, went down to Wyoming, spent 2 days with my family before my mom restarted chemo. And we had a really big conversation. And I was like, I just put like 10 months of my life into this project. And it's for you and it's for cancer,
but if you need me as a caregiver, I'll be there. Like, it's just a run. It can be done another time. And she was like, you need to do this for you. Like, you need to do this for me. You need to do it for everybody else that's been affected by cancer or hardship. And like, you need to do it for our family. And like, don't quit.
Yeah.
Like, don't quit. Just because there's like cancer doesn't mean you can quit living.
I like that. Like your mom too, for her to be able to say that is really incredible, because it'd be like the last person that you would think would say that.
Yeah.
But to encourage you amidst it all, it's really powerful.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. And in a way that like I had sacrificed so much of my time and energy in life for her for that year. And all of a sudden she just gave it all back to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was like, okay. And so I drove back up to Montana, drove to Canada and started the run like the next day. And it was just like every day it was like, I'm running for my mom.
Yeah.
And she ended up getting really sick and having to be in the ICU during the middle of the run.
Okay.
So there was like a 3-day break where I didn't run. I think it was on like day 12. My brother was crewing me at that time. My youngest brother, he's like 18. Like the whole crew thing, if I do it again, I'll know so much better.
Yes.
To not like switch crew people every 5 days or something. But so we drove down to Salt Lake and like I spent 3 days in the ICU with her. Okay. And like it was such a beautiful experience to be there and not be afraid of her dying and not be afraid of, you know, losing a family member. And because we had already done it. Yeah. You know, and I'd already walked through that challenge. And, you know, and to show up and be like, hey, like, buck up, buttercup, like, let's get back on the horse, like, you know, and share, you know, grit and a story of perseverance with her and be like, hey, we already did this once. We're going to do it again.
We'll do it again.
And like, so I spent 3 days in the ICU, had a little break from running, which wasn't my plan or goal. Like I wanted to run the whole thing consecutively. And started again in Ovando and just kept running. And and I'd share like, it was really important to me that people understood like the concepts or the lessons like you were talking about. And one of the big ones, cancer or any life challenge, like cancer is just like a cool like lens to look through for it, but it's really anything bad that happens. Any challenge could be a death, could be a loss of any kind. Like could be you're just having a bad day and you need a little relative readjustment or whatever. Like, but it's like you can hold like beautiful things and pain and suffering and hope at the same time. Yeah. And those things can coexist together. I can be running through the state of Montana, having the time of my life, getting filled up by like the big sky and like listening to music and like just doing the thing I've been wanting to do since I was little. And at the same time, still be getting like phone calls about my mom and like checking in on her and being scared and worried that she might not make it again. And like you can hold love and loss in the same hand and it's okay. And that's a really beautiful part of life. And so that's like, just there was a lot of thinking on the run. A lot of lessons. But a lot of lessons. Yeah, just time to do that. That is it's a really, really unique perspective too. And just to be able to understand that, like, because you're right there, like thinking about it constantly, like, oh, beauty, like, look at this, look at the surroundings. And then you get a text message or a phone call from a family member, you know, or like pulled back to that. Back over here. Switching. And just being like, and again, like just kind of giving up control. Like there's nothing I can really do. And I've already committed to running. And this is what my mom has asked me to do. So in a way, like me running, whether she makes it or not, and whether I miss her death or not, me running is the best way I can honor her because she asked me to do it for her. And like, that's so cool. Like I'm like, it's absolutely amazing for sure. Like from your mom's perspective, have you talked to her about like, yes, she raised you, she's raised all your siblings, like the strength she's gathering from you now, whereas your mom for so long is pouring that strength into you as she's raising you, you know? Have you talked to her about that? I mean, a little bit. We kind of like, we've got a pretty strong connection now. And so we've kind of been like, hey, like, but like when I visited her in the ICU, she had drawn with like highlighters, like these maps of Montana with my route down it. And she's like, the Montana run, like, go Becca, go. Like, and I think in a way, I'm going to get teary-eyed. I think in a way the run was a really cool outlet for her, and it was a beacon of hope, and it was a symbol of the strength she'd given me as a mom being expressed and given back to her and shared with other people at the same time. And I think it so after she got out of the ICU, she met me in Ennis, and she walked like as much as she could with me. She wanted to do a mile, but she had just spent 14 days in a hospital. But it was like, like I saw her and we just like started crying. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, like you did it. Like, and I'd be like, Mom, you did it. And she's like, Becca, you did it. And I was like, you made it. She's like, you can walk. And I was like, you can walk. Like, how are you feeling? I feel great. I'm a little tired. Yeah, me too. Yeah. And it was like this really beautiful thing where it was like two women from Montana, like having these different challenges, but like the grit that we've been taught and like that's been passed down was totally relevant. And it was really beautiful to have those parallels.
Yeah. Like it is like just hearing it. I'm like, look at it has so many goosebumps. Too, just because like those, it is so important, and it's so important to recognize it, even if it's small little things in your day to day. Like, yes, those challenges, you can hold those in one hand and you have like all of the good in the other. And sometimes it's just really easy to focus on all of the challenges and all the difficulty. Yep. But like, look, you can have these simultaneously and tackle them too. Even for me, and listening to this more in your story, it's like, yes, running, oftentimes people think running, like you're running away from something. Like, what are your demons, so to speak? Like, what are you running away from? Yeah. And you're really running straight to it. Yeah. Like big time. Yep. Like, let's just run straight back to it. Yeah. So for you and your mom too, I'm like, it's just really, really beautiful to see that. And I'm like, yeah, for your siblings, like for those other people too, like they can do it. They can do it as well. Yeah. Like when it comes down to it.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's running, 500 miles through Montana, or if it's working an extra 5 hours at a shift that you don't want to do, or if it's taking care of, a kid, or just being a bigger person in an argument. Like whatever it is, you can buck up. You can do it.
Buck up, Buttercup.
Yeah, buck up, Buttercup. Let's go. Like I had a running box. So one of the things I did is I had a box of all my running gear, and I literally wrote like, buck up, Buttercup. Like get back on the horse. Yeah. Like come on. Like we don't quit. We don't quit, Bex. Like let's go. Like yeah, and and those kind of mantras, like they totally help you. And I think Montana in particular has something so beautiful about the Western way of life, and like the grit and the hardship, and that the people that homesteaded here had to endure, and that my family has had, and that got passed down to me. And I think it's a really cool tool. And I think it's, if you can share that concept with other people of like endurance and grit, it can help people through whatever their challenge might be.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Like that too. It's like that portal, we were talking about it earlier too. It's like, go through this portal and then everything opens up, and all of a sudden you have this different perspective, and you're keying into those experiences that you're having. So a lot of people think, it's just about adventure. I was like, that's far from it. Yeah. Like these adventures teach us so much. Yeah. And if you look at cancer as an adventure too, it's like, that totally flips the script as well. Yep. It's like, this is what we're tackling right now.
Yeah. Like cancer is a beautiful opportunity. Like you get, all of a sudden, life means more in the blink of an eye with cancer. Yep. All of a sudden, when you're faced with the reality of losing someone you love or losing your own life means more. And it's beautiful. It's scary and beautiful at the same time, but it's a really it's a special, and I kind of view it as like almost a sacred perspective where you're towing the line between life and death every day. And if you can have gratitude and walk through it with like hope and grit and gratitude, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. Yeah. Because you walked through it with the right attitude about it and the right perspective about it. And you've taken the opportunity that could have been full of fear and terror and bitterness, and you've chosen forgiveness and love and care and to cherish the moments you do have. Yeah. And then if you do that, it doesn't really matter if you make it or not, or, if the patient lives or dies, like you've gotten to live life and you've gotten to use the experience in the right way.
Yep.
Yeah. And running is the same thing. Like a challenge through running, it's not about you proving yourself. It's about you losing yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like it's about you being refined by it and getting rid of your ego and not being, because if you try, like you were saying, like try and go out and be, I'm going to dominate this mountain. I'm going to crush this race. Like watch me crush this downhill segment, like whatever, like have fun. Like it's not going to work. You're never going to last in the long run. But if you can go out there and use running in the mountains and a physical challenge to allow yourself to lose the parts of yourself that aren't working for you anymore. And you can be refined by it. And like, you're not running away from anything, but I like to say I run into things. Like I'm running to the inside. And like, it can be like a really like revolutionary process and you can change. And I totally feel changed from my run too. Like I'm just not that I'm a different person, but I'm more refined. Yeah. Like the parts of me that weren't really beautiful or the parts of me that weren't really great, there was no room for them there. And I left them along the side of the road and like they can stay there because it's better without them.
Yeah. Just that process too, like day in and day out and just going like straight at it, head first into, and not a lot of people will get like a month to do that, but look for those opportunities. Yes, you saw a whole bunch of them in a month, but you see them day in and day out when you go on a run or you have a conversation with your mom or you hear how your mom's handling this circumstance too. I'm like, those are really important to key into. It's almost sometimes too. It's like you almost wish you could journal while you're running, but you can't. So you just have to think about it.
A voice memo and like
you could voice memo it, I suppose. But I think the time to spent in doing that over. I was saying to a buddy the other day, it's like when you run certain trails, you have like these memories, and you'll hit that trail again. And you'll key into that. You'll remember like 3 years ago when you went through this section and you saw a bear or whatever it was, or just a really beautiful morning. But I'm like, that's what running does over and over and over again is like, you just key into those beautiful moments too. So it's like, you get to think about your mom. I remember you coming through the rut finish and I was like, and I knew a bit about your mom too. And I knew how heavy that was, like just to like finish the rut.
And she was there.
Yeah, and she was there. Like
that's the whole reason I signed up for the rut.
You were blazing to your mom. I'm like, and that's really important. Like just to go through it. Yes, it is. It's a silly race, like when it comes down to it, but it's so important on multiple levels too. But for you too, and your perspective, what are? I know you shared a bit about the learnings and all of that, but like, what are some of the other little intricate details that you could pass on to people to maybe help them in their day-to-day or when they experience cancer in their family or whatever it is?
Yeah. Oh man, that's such a good question. I think it's, you have to be authentic with yourself is what it comes down to. You can't have any like BS with yourself. Because the moment you start lying to yourself is the moment you start lying about life as you see it. And if you really want to experience life and you really want to show up authentically for it, you have to start with showing up authentically for yourself and truly being like, do I like who I am? Can I refine something? Am I being a nice right now? Do I not have the time or do I just don't want to talk to them? Yeah. And just being really honest with why you do what you do and what got you there and seeing if you can start over with some of the habits that you have in life. And I know that it's like, how does that connect to cancer? But it, like, how do I interact with other people and why? Like what's the basis of this interaction? Is it because I want something from them? Is it because I'm trying to prove something? Or is it because I'm here and I authentically know myself well enough to present something and my goal is to ultimately give something away? Yeah. And if you can do the latter, it's like so beautiful and life means more. And then you can walk through cancer because you're not operating off of selfish motives, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like that perspective and looking at yourself and giving yourself some grace too.
Yeah.
Like 2 months off, like that's a hard thing for endurance athletes to do.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing for any individual to do, even if fitness isn't a part of their lives, like to give themselves that rest to recover and then train the way you know you should.
Yeah. Yeah. And giving people grace is such a good one. Like people are going to mess up. You know, like my crew
every day.
Like I messed up trying to like manage the crew while I was like trying to run 24 miles a day and like trying to eat food and sleep at the same time. And I was like, I just like, I didn't run most days until 1 p.m.
Yep.
Because that's how long it would take for us to get going. And I was just like, I'm just going to give myself grace. It's okay. As long as I have daylight, we're fine.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if it's 7 a.m.
I don't
1
need to
p.m.
be in a rush.
Yeah. Yeah. And being like, oh, you don't want to run the whole 20 miles? That's fine. Yep. Whatever you want. Yep. And like, because if you can't give yourself grace, you'll never get past the shame of failure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you understand when you don't achieve something you want to do, that it would be more detrimental to focus on that negativity instead of being like, I can't today, but I will tomorrow. And I've proven to myself I can't today. Yeah. And like the only times I stopped running were one, because it got dark. 2, I had a crew member that had to leave, and so I was crewless. And like there was like a couple crew gaps. So I could only run like 16 miles instead of like 24.
Yep.
And when I was certain it would be more detrimental to keep going, or my body was just like, hey, like stop, stop. Like,
it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Like I was cramping on both like glutes going up a hill after 32 miles. And I was like, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm done. I think I did enough today. There's no reason to keep going.
Yep.
But every day it was like, I've reached the limit and I don't even know where I was going with this, but like, it's really cool what you can do when you give yourself grace because you can actually achieve a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Because if I would have kept pushing.
Those 4 extra miles, you're going to make those 4 miles up tomorrow.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Like you'll make them up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Then some.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a piece to like that adaptation and that understanding. Yes, physically your body is adapting to running every single day, but probably more so your mind is adapting to how you are becoming a better person or becoming a stronger individual as well. I was like, it totally plays in to that kind of rest piece. Yeah. Rest and grace, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Which is like, for me, the antithesis of what I think I need to be better. But it really is like what I need to be better at is that, you know? And yeah.
No, it's really phenomenal. Truly, like, yes, thank you for being there for your mom and your family and for people that are going through so much too. It's a huge inspiration. And thanks for just sharing what you've gone through, because anyone, as they learn more about themselves, it's really important to then, get to share that with somebody. And so for you to be able to share it on this podcast, we're really, really appreciative of your time and your story. And I think you should do it again.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, or maybe break it up and let people do sections. Yeah. That's a big undertaking though, too. So maybe
I've already done it once.
You've already done it.
I've already done it once. Like, how could it get harder?
It's like, there's already a template. It's already a template
like,
there.
I've already made the route. Like, I've already done it once and I already know all the stops along the way. Like,
so if anybody wants to go do it, just get a hold of Becca. And the plan is there. Yeah. But there's a lot of meaning behind it and there's a reason for it. And truly like a wonderful example too of just like grit and determination and grace. And I love that rest is wrapped in there too. I think that's really cool that you found that. And I think for a lot of endurance folks, that will be really helpful as well. It's like, rest, do it. It's good for you. So, but keep us posted on your mom's progress and we'll keep talking to you in the future. But thanks, Becca.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Awesome.